I'm waiting on you.
Glad to see you. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Ms. Bailey? Here. Dr. Cable? Ms. Coleman? Here. Dr. Davis? Mr. Estes?
Here.
Dr. Henderson?
Here.
Ms. Lawson? Here. Ms. Talbert? Ms. Merrick? Ms. Hooper? Here. You have 6, which shows representative.
Thank you very much. Our next introductions and announcements.
We do have several. Ms. Bobo, would you start with talking about the DJ's accomplishments, please? And then it'll be Ms. Paul and then Robin.
Yes. The vote for now. Engagement. Yes. In the corner in a good way. Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lamont Albo, Director of Student Engagement. We have the distinct privilege and honor to acknowledge one of our staff members, Ms. Khadija Camara, her undergraduate degree coursework in social work from Santa State University this past December. So we had the pleasure of supporting and encouraging her through as we do so many of the Louisiana students there. Khadija was brought on with us here at LOSFA in the fall, early August, as our first student intern. And so she assisted us with student network groups and all of things engagement. We are privileged to have her continue her employment with LOSFA, no longer as a student intern, but as a part-time student engagement specialist. And when asked how she was able to transition, she said, "Don't as if I never left." So we are grateful to have her and support. Khadija was instrumental in creating our inaugural and continuous student management student engagement monthly newsletter entitled Engagement Matters. So we congratulate her on her accomplishment. She has plans to pursue her master's in social work.
Good morning, everyone. Devin Alexander is unable to be with us. She is ill. So she's not with us, but she started with us as a specialist in scholarship and grant division. She will work primarily with home study students, which we have a good population of those students who qualify for our programs. And then she also works with special projects that come up where she'll assist the audit team and that sort of thing. We also work closely with the Louisiana National Board on tuition exemptions for those students who are part of the National Board. So that's her area. She previously worked at LSU in enrollment management and financial aid. So she brings experience, which helps in the training because she knows financial aid and that whole background. So she can join us next month. She's ill today. Thank you.
So the legal division has added another member. Mr. Robert Rue joins us as a part-time attorney, and he's helping out the legal department on an as-needed basis. And Rob, you want to say something?
Well, I appreciate the invitation to come to work. It's something that I think my wife also appreciates being out of the house. I've worked 32 years for the Louisiana Workforce Commission, where I served in multiple capacities: executive counsel, general counsel, assistant secretary, and I think I had to retire because they might have killed me. I think something else. By the way, all of those were at the same time. So it was quite difficult. But anyway, I retired and I got an invitation to come to work here, and I appreciated it. And so does my wife. I thank you all for being here.
you.
Others?
Dr. Wicker is ill today, and I thought Nick is with us, but Nicholas is joining us from the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries as a human resources specialist. So he has hit the ground running and processing new hires and helping out with a very, very busy HR department is one of his specialties. So perhaps we will get to meet Nicholas at another meeting as well.
Moving to approval of minutes. I have two corrections to the minutes. Third line, first page. I called the meeting to order.
Okay,
Vice Chair looks back. Otherwise I wouldn't have been here. And then that's the third line, and then this is just on the second page. It's not what we usually say, it's called the meeting in accordance with the agenda. I think it should be in accordance with bylaws of the LOSFA advisory. Changing, I don't think you call the executive committee in accordance with the agenda. I went back and checked, and say in accordance with bylaws of the LOSFA advisory.
Okay,
That just stuck out. So I would offer those as corrections to the minute. Does anybody have any other?
so they can approve them first.
Yes.
I move favorable.
Second,
I second.
thank you. All right, so that's second as amended. Next, we have any public comments? Okay, program updates.
Good morning. Good morning. As you can tell, this was START programs investment position as of 11/30/22. Of course, in START, we've been extremely busy with end of the year deposits and spring disbursements. Preliminary numbers suggest that despite the downturn in the economy, saving for education continues to be a priority for Louisiana residents. For December of 21, we had deposits of $23,179,000 across 3 programs. For December of 22, we're only down about 500,000 at 22,670. So I was excited for that. I expected it not to be as impressive as it was. Our disbursements for December were up about 1.1 million from last year. So I was very encouraged by that as well. Have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. College access, success, and communications.
Stand behind you. So for our virtual session, since we began offering those in March of 2020, we have over 2,400 of those. TOPS, Student Hub, FAFSA assistance being the most popular. And then we have also reached over virtual events that have been conducted at that time. For our professional development, for the last month, we have focused on student loan repayment, the National Student Clearinghouse Student Tracker, and encouraging autonomy students, which is an effort that we're looking at going forward as we look to revamp our website resources. It's making it easier for students to be able to navigate when they, if they don't want direct advising assistance from our staff. We want to make sure that they have everything available to them or to navigate the college access process. Yeah.
So most of you know that we do our Signal Line texting through our Signal Line platform. So these are a few of the messages that went out in December. With each cohort, what happens is that every year we take the bills that we did. That's how we know who is first time or full time. for that particular year. And so we take that cohort and that is the cohort of the year. So text about 3 cohorts at a time. So right now we're with 22, 23, 21, 22, and 2021. So these are the messages that go out. And what you will see, and I mentioned this before, is that we drive those students to the student hub just because over the years we kind of know how communication is structured. Over the summer, we know what questions we're getting. In January, we know what questions we're getting. So we really try to be intentional with the information that we put out because we know that they want to know what their top status is. And so we are able to provide their individual LOSFA ID and encourage them to log in, check their status. One of the things that we try to do is to make sure that they know you need to be enrolled full-time. You know, these are the GPA requirements, just so that, you know, that minimizes the incident of, oh, I didn't know I needed to be full-time to my top, which hopefully would then reduce the number of cancellations and exceptions. So what you see up there is a spike, we were rewarded with a spike in activity after we texted all these students to encourage them to set up those hub accounts, or looks like they took our advice. And these are a few of our public information officers, our PR specialists, and myself. And we completed the courses to earn the NCAN Certified Advisor Badge. Just some pretty intensive courses. Some of them are over an hour. There are 22 of them. And so those 5, which you can see, and 3 other staff members completed those courses basically. So we are more empowered to help the students that contact our office.
We also distributed our 2022 reflections, which is the year recap for all the efforts throughout the entire agency across all divisions. So things like program launches, events, outreach, new resources that have been developed, communication strategies, things like that. We want to make sure that we're highlighting everything we're doing across the agency, making sure that our community partners, those that we work directly with, and other stakeholders are aware of the work that we're doing here at LOSFA. You should have a link in your handout. If you can see that in your email or maybe looked over it, you should be able to access that with all of the highlights over the past year. Eb, if you can hit on some of the specifics.
Yes. Yes. So speaking of highlights, I am a math nerd, so see all these graphs. That's why. But basically, you know, kind of piggybacking off the 2022 reflections, I also wanted to kind of give an update or overview of what our division has been up to over the past year. And so really what we want to highlight is just the amount of emails that we've done and really looking at different spikes and seasons. We've said before that summer is really, really busy for us. You'll notice that we received almost 3,500 emails in August alone. So busy time for us. We've also incorporated Flex, and so we see that she is continuing to actually function very well answering the questions that come in on her own. She's handed off 166 conversations to a live agent who's able to offer real-time assistance right then and there. Conducted 416 virtual office hours. This is like the 2022. And so what you'll also notice is that there is also a corresponding spike in January. We have those students that are returning back to college, and in August, we have both those problem students with TOPS processing, and then also those students that are returning to college. So we kind of have a double whammy at that particular time, which is why there's always a spike. Same thing with the phone calls. And so we can see this across all of the different types of communications. We also responded to 1,360 text messages that came in from our texting campaign for last year. And in addition to that, we did 112 outreach events, which the most requested events that we do from task is going to be presentations, followed by FAFSA completions. Of course, that takes over everybody's life around October, and then college fairs and browses and pretty much anything in between, which includes Smart Cookie, which Shane can touch on, but we'll be really excited to bring that information to you guys next month. That happened this year.
All works things. So for our social media update, we continue to see an increase in followers across all platforms. We're also working as part of our strategic communication plan, identifying areas of the state where we are not reaching on social media. And so developing strategies in order to get into those more rural areas of the state in order to make sure that they are receiving information from the agency. So some of our more popular things that we posted in the past month include what to do after the pass, the next steps that you can take. Also, information about the student hub. We saw an increase in activity on our website for those students accessing the hub as a result of those posts. And then we also celebrated CSEP about careers and programs in computer science. And so we were able to share those. Also shared information on all of our computer science programs that will stay to connect students directly with those programs so that we can learn more and gain more information, so that we're trying to, as early as possible, connect students with all the different career pathways possible, give them the information that they need to prepare for those, identify the program, everything else that they need to do in order to prepare for college and career. For our partnerships, it's not here on the slide, but I didn't want to touch on this since we're talking until March. We just recently had an event in partnership with Girl Scouts. We just created a partnership recently with Girl Scouts of Louisiana East. And so the first thing we were able to do was to provide a customized program based off of the structure of the flight tour. And it aligned with what they have as their badge requirements under financial literacy. So we were able to take the components of that, align it with LOSFA's 5-month match. We also created some customized resources as well. So it really showed us in the direction that we're trying to move with our community partnerships, creating those customized services so that we can take advantage of programs that are already existing, so that LOSFA can get in there and give information about financial literacy, about college access, career exploration, and college readiness. So we'll have more information to share. We continue, especially through the work of Anna Bro, who's one of our PIOs who works with community partnerships, really identifying ways that we can maximize through community partnerships LOSFA's contribution. So they do. And that was the number one question that we had from the staff who joined us.
Right.
And there were well, it's like providing lunch on my table. I've had to stuff my place in pocket. We're all funded. So any questions at all?
Yes, have any questions or comments?
I like these new graphics. It's really nice. I know I've seen y'all made a lot of changes. Even looking at the social media, like it's clean, it's concise. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And there were close to 200 participants between Girl Scouts.
Yes, there were 161 Girl Scouts who were there, parents, and the staff members who were there as well. The engagement was off the charts. They were super excited, really enthusiastic about answering questions about, the cost of any fridge and a dorm room, and what type of college would be the best fit. The difference between an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree. So also looking at creating programs that are geared towards younger students as well, as we're trying to reach them as early as possible. And then, which made me really feel good about the job that our team did, as we were rolling, carrying everything back to the car, the Girl Scout staff were there for your capable innovation. So it was worth Saturday. Partner.
And just to brag a little bit more on the staff and the collaborative effort, at the same time that Shane and his team and Ebony were getting ready for this big event, right? We got a call from Senator Fields' office. Was it like Wednesday or Thursday? So can you have someone at the Leadership Institute this Saturday? And of course, you are finding a way to say, yes, you will. And we did. And Terry Underwood went to the Leadership Institute. And Terry, can you tell us a little bit about that? So it was you got a whole team heading to Nunez, right? And then Terry stepped up to say, hey, I will take care of the Leadership Institute, and what Senator Fields is doing is definitely a best practice. So we were just honored and happy to be able to assist with that. So come on, Greg, what do you get on your long weekends?
Well, I was extremely excited when I arrived to see the participation that Senator Fields has out at the Institute. It was so encouraging to see little ones as well as those all the way to high school who are participating in the Institute. What happens basically is when they sign up to participate, they are opened a start account with an initial deposit of $100, and we already have those on the books now. About 50 additional accounts were open on Saturday for those that are coming into the program. They get an initial deposit of $100, and because they participate in the program, they also receive additional funds based on their grades to go into the start account. So he's doing wonderful things out there, and I was so encouraged and so happy to be there just to see the excitement of these folks. On Monday nights, they do a math night for kids to assist with their math. Tuesday nights, they mentioned at the program that they're going to start a robotics program, and they also have an aviation program. So I was very excited. I did not realize that I had all this out there, but it's great. It's a great program, and I was excited to be part of it.
They did a good job to show them
Okay.
about the customized tools for them as well, because
One time, was there a proposal from the state to engage in some kind of program where the child would get X dollars
Yes.
deposited?
there's actually a study that they just finished, and a report that will go to the legislature on a quasi type of the same type right now.
So several years ago, there was a task force, the Children's Savings Account Task Force. And it did not move forward in any way, shape, or form. I think that was 2016.
It had to be before 2017.
And then this past legislative session, there was a request to study baby bonds, which is sort of the same, but not exactly. For those, a certain set amount would be deposited into an account, not necessarily a start account. And it could be used for education, to buy a first home, or to start a business. So that report will be coming out relatively soon, I would think. And we participated as far as savings account for college.
And providing information from that previous study,
Right.
on the research base behind why these accounts are a good idea and what the outcome results are when students have those accounts. So that was lots of participation, just that provision of that prior.
I appreciate all of that, and it seems to me it's an easy to understand. The earlier people invest, then the better opportunities you have to make sure your enrollment trends are going the right way instead of the wrong way for all of K-12. I don't know enough about finances to know. There's probably no way that you can take some money, create all of this excess money that we're going to have, but it can't be, create something where you could put it into an account that it could be held to those kinds of college access success things, or baby bonds or savings account, or whatever you call it. And I'm very, very appreciative of the things you're doing with groups that are kind of outside of the normal range of people thinking, like the Girl Scouts and Senator Fields Leadership Institute, which is years on whether the others have ideas, but it might be, worth a conversation when those things pop up, because I really think it's kind of like, for me, it's the pebble in the pond, and one parent's going to say this, and oh, by the way, and that's how we can coach them with something. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Thank you. Student engagement.
Yeah, good morning. And, it's okay. And in the month of December's meeting, I shared at the time that we submitted our report, we had only had one network group that had met. So this month's reporting includes the remainder of those activities, where in the month of December, we lined up our fall gatherings across the board. Our theme for the month of December focused on the value of mentorships and apprenticeships. So across our 4 student network groups, we held speakers that spoke specifically to that topic. Again, you can see for the nursing, our own Regent Sterling presented to our nurses. We're excited about that. And so we wound up with great active participation and looking forward to the month of January now being National Littering Awareness. What we did, we voted the recordings to all of the students statewide that are in our contact list, even those that were not in attendance, so that message, those messagings of importance of mentorship, apprenticeships was heard throughout all of our participants in our groups there. Next slide, please. And as we transition, I want to also share that we will be launching our spring semester kickoff sessions on the 30th of this month, where we're adding a new network group. It will be our 7th edition for the education student network to coincide with work of the Go Teach initiative, that fund and that program to again assist Ms. Sienna in growing its teaching pipeline there. The next slide, so I can advance it. Thank you. I wanted to highlight one of our network groups, Transition into Newest. We launched it in the fall of the 2022 semester, and it's targeting our secondary students as they are transitioning from high school into college. On one occasion, particularly on this evening, this month's November, I think it was the November gathering, we featured a subject matter on financial aid. The presentation obviously went forth and it's very impactful in that we received a testimonial from one of the parents of one of the students, whereby prior to the students' attendance at this group, he was dead set on leaving Louisiana, leaving all aid available to him to pursue out-of-state education. And this young man has like a 34 on his ACT. And after our presentation, I just want to add this particular group, we are doing community-based engagement outreach with them. Reach those students that are not necessarily receiving services through their schools, but as they engage with community-based offerings, community-based groups, whether it be a gym or after-school tutorial program. And so these community-based organizations are trying to cultivate college-going culture among those students that they are serving. And so, as you can see, as a footnote to this caption here, one of the parents felt that she needed to make us aware of the impact that we are having and what she's realizing as a result of this level of engagement. So I just wanted to shout out to this, and now this young man, he's considering NSU on his list. And so, in fact, he wants to major in dance and performing arts before going on to law school. So that's was encouraging to hear. Next slide, please.
Not to interrupt, but Rob, is there any better preparation to be a lawyer than dancing?
Thank you. It speaks to the scope and the depth of our talented students here in this year. Our last slide reflects the awesome engagement close out 2022 with. To the left, Ebony and I represented LOSFA at one of the Carl Perkins Regional Coalition meetings. And this one was done at Delgado. And so we were sharing all things LOSFA with those partners there that represented, span the community in that region, not just higher ed, but some secondary schools, some business partners as well. So we're really pleased to make that presentation. To the top right, we wound up our year reviewing with one of the partners that we have been coalescing with. Our student engagement division was formed in 2021. That with LHC Group, again, which is a home health conglomeration of agencies that span 37 states in Louisiana, headquartered here in Louisiana. And so they again have partnered with our student engagement division on so many levels. So at the top two, we had an opportunity to visit with them on site, see their Lafayette headquarters. Some of our team members from LOSFA traveled in person and some attended virtually. To dialogue further on how we can further grow and develop moving forward. One of their goals are, as we're doing the work here in Louisiana, not just connecting students with them, but connecting them to our students. One of their other agencies outside the state has something called a campus ambassador program. Again, just trying to bring all things that LHC has available to students to onboarding them. So they're asking them, asked us on what are some first colleges, first schools in Louisiana that they can connect with and replicate that program. So we partnered with them and gave them a list of schools. LSU will be one, NSU is one, Southern will be other. And so they're starting to prepare that campus ambassador program, and we're going to partner with them further. Again, they're wanting to continue to grow our groups. I must share this as we wind up. The photo to the bottom right, I have an awesome story to share right quickly. The lady to the right is known as LHC Group's first nurse, Dr. Henderson. She is the co-founder of this this organization's corporation. And the young lady to the left, obviously, she's a graduate, this was at the UL's pinning ceremony. She is an active student, a member of our nursing student network group, and she's also placed in a nurse tech position in her final semester at UL. The young lady has 6 degrees of separation from the first nurse of LHC Group. In that LHC Group, they have as their mantra to serve all people. LHC Group's first patient, when they first opened some 25 years ago, was the grandparents of the young lady. And so Ginger Myers was present at this event as one of the presenters, and so we definitely had to connect them. She was gracious enough to introduce herself, and it just shows the value in connecting students to all things relative to their desires and pursuits. I think that's last. Any questions?
Any questions, comments?
Yes, you know, the nursing program, nursing college that will have it now named from the Myers family.
Yes, yes, yes.
Significant investments in that work and the women's problem. Example of giving back.
And they're seeking to expand it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next, we have field outreach service talking about.
So, this first slide is, unlike my future analytics. So this is the site that we use for match and fit with students. And what we like to do when we get the analytics back from the host is kind of like look at which events were actually conducted when we had spikes in usage. And on the right side, you see that there were college application events and FAFSA events around the spikes. And on the left side, you can actually see that there were cross-curricular activity, which are like college and career readiness activity about real life situations, and FAFSA completion activities. So kind of like helps our staff to understand, you know, when the schools are actually using the site. Okay, next slide. So as a part of the PD that our staff actually attends, we have a partnership with INSEP, which is the National Council for Community Educational Partnerships. They provide Europe technical assistance for programs like ours all over the country. They have a new initiative called College Advising Learning Lab, and it's really neat because you can actually interact with other programs across the country to learn things that they're doing in their programs, as well as learn from the experts in terms of the promising practice and best practices when engaging with youth. So our two newest staff members, Davida Brown is our career transition specialist, and Ashley Washington, our media specialist, actually took time and completed the course. What's beautiful about this is it's both synchronous and asynchronous. So you learn with a person or a facilitator, but also you can do online classes as well. And you receive, your certification as you see here. On the right side of on this slide, many of you may remember when we brought the students in September, Skylar Edwards was one of those students. And I want to tell you that you're not here today, but the amazing thing about Skylar is that she's one of the students, and yes, she was named Student of the Year for West St. John High School. She was one of the students that we took to Washington, D.C. to the Youth Leadership Conference this past summer. She actually spoke on the national stage about mental health awareness. And I quote her saying that she deals with social anxiety and sadness, and it keeps her from connecting with everyone. Those were her words. That's what she shared with a room of over 2,000 people. So for her to be brave enough to do that, and, she came in here and shared with you all about, how the program has helped her over the years. And now she's Student of the Year. We're definitely proud of her. These are some of the sessions that she's participated in over the years, middle school, high school. So just wanted to definitely give a shout out to her and her school and everyone who supports her and her regional coordinator as well. Next slide. Okay, so Converse High School. So Dr. Henderson, I know you talked about Pleasant Hill, so Converse is over in Sabine too. We love Sabine. So they we support all kinds of campus visits. So this is a campus visit or campus visits that our students from Converse High School actually went to. So to tag into UL Monroe. And most people who know about matriculation in Converse or Sabine, they know that most students go to NSU. So these students were able to get out to Louisiana Tech and to Monroe, and this is some of what they said. So Madison learns about radiology, radiologic technology, which they have a BS program there. And also Allie, she's interested in nursing and she hadn't considered tech again, because a lot of times they go to NSU. So we're happy to support that. On the right side of the screen, we start early. So this is Scotlandville. They actually went over to Southern. And if you know about the matriculation data for Scotlandville, many of the students from Scotlandville go to Southern. So start really early with them and getting them on campus to understand about engineering and the different kinds of engineering, and actually doing some hands-on activities in the engineering department. So we are proud to support that as well. Next slide. So again, another early initiative, this is East Feliciana Middle. So they actually spent the first 9 weeks in the STEM pathway. So definitely using, real world projects to engage in web design, digital animation, 3D design, graphic design, and digital storytelling. So helping them to understand, okay, we're saying STEM, but what does that really mean in life? So again, starting with them really early. So really pleased that it's another rural community that they were supported with this initiative as well. And on the right side of the screen, definitely want to give a shout out to Michelle Evans. She's in the Lake Charles area. We worked with her over the years, and she is absolutely amazing in how she innovatively engages with our programming and the schools and the school and the community in that area. So with her forward thinking for that, their FAFSA day, she actually, as an incentive, provided, was supported from our organization, Wireless Mouse with the Gear Up logo on it to help students this year and beyond. So they can actually use that in their first year of college. And as you can see, the quote from the first student, about Miss Evans being right there by her side, and she's been right there by our side as well. We work very closely with them. And as you can see, that's a quote from Miss Evans. So definitely a big shout out to Miss Evans if she's listening today, or Melissa, who is her OSSC in that area. So that's what I have. If you have any questions?
Victoria, question, how does this, how do you let this young lady go for Any other comments? Thank you very much. Thank you. Scholarships and grants.
Our Louisiana Gold Grant, the allocation for the current year 22-23 is 55.4 million. We use roughly close to half of that amount. Billing for the spring semester will begin after the school's census day. We don't anticipate having any leftover funds once the semester ends. We don't normally award Gold Grant during the summer. The John R. Justice update. We had a total of 8 public defenders applications. A couple were disqualified for various reasons because the attorney has to work full-time for the district, not a contract worker. And we know there's a big shortage of public defenders across the nation. So Louisiana is not separate from that. And some of the public defenders are working as contract workers so they can still do private practice because public defenders are paid considerably less than prosecutors. So we will have only 3 applicants that actually will be paid, and then the additional money will be provided among those 3 public defenders. So it just goes toward their total student loan indebtedness, which, some of them have $150,000 plus for law school. So that's helping that. On the prosecutor side, we had 15 applications across all 5 circuits. So we dispersed all of the money for the current year. We started the new application process January 1st, we'll go April 30th. And one good thing, we had $39,000 that we dispersed for the 22 year. So we got an increase of so we had $86,000 for the upcoming year, which will be a significant increase in the number of the dollars that will go toward prosecutors and public defenders. So we hope that increase in funding will increase the number of applicants that we receive across public defenders and prosecutors. But some things, people are leaving public service, especially on the public defender side, and then depending on what happens with the President Biden student loan repayment, that some people may pay off their own debt with the $10,000 doing public loan forgiveness, which is 10 years. So there are a lot of factors that play into, do I want to apply and commit to 3 years of public service? When if I just work 1 more year, I qualify for the federal 10-year, that sort of thing. So that's where we are with John R. Justice, but we'll see an increase in that. Next slide. The MJ Foster, that was as of December 19th. And I do have current numbers, which is as of yesterday, January 18th, 2023. So the 5897 applications, that total is now at 6,062. So of those applications, we now have 4,265 that were eligible. Of the eligible ones, our funded amount has gone up to 2838 instead of 2785. And then the wait list number has increased from 1350 to 1787. On MJ Foster, we're looking at, there are various reasons for those that are ineligible. Our ineligible numbers is like the 1787. Most of them there, the student exceeded the education requirements because they can't have a degree. Some of them don't meet the age requirements. I did file fast for that sort of thing. Looking at the programs, we have paid out $593,000 to our two-year institutions and $45,708 to our proprietary schools. The average award paid to our public schools is $1,380, proprietary $1,202. Some of the top programs, logistics, with truck driving and bus driving, commercial vehicle operation. That's one of the programs that has received a lot of requests. Also in the construction area, carpentry, and then our medical assistant, blood bank technology specialist, and then the nursing programs. And then on the IT and on the health, that's on the healthcare side. And we've also had electricians, which is construction, and manufacturing, the line worker, the popular programs that students have been enrolling in for the MJ Foster program. The other program on the list is the Go You Challenge program, and that's for our students who have completed the Louisiana National Guard Youth Challenge program. So these students can receive up to 2 years of tuition at a school that offers, as long as the student is majored in a program that offers a 3, 4, or 5-star job. So for the fall, we had 6 recipients, and we'll probably have a couple of more for this spring. Because with the Youth Challenge program, they not on the traditional schedule. Some students graduate in September, some in February. So those who finished in September will probably enroll this spring. Some of them go straight into the military. So and some of them go back to their high school. They only went to Youth Challenge for credit course recovery. So there are a lot of different options for those students who go through the Youth Challenge program, but we do offer that assistance to them. They want to pursue post-secondary education. Are there any questions?
Would I be correct in assuming back to the MJ Foster, that 1,350 that are waitlisted, and I know the number has gone up for eligible that were funded, but they're waitlisted because there's not funding? Or there's something else?
They hold a if you're eligible, there's a reservation in place for you and the amount of money. So you have a certain deadline to enroll. So at the end of January, if I was applied early and I have not enrolled yet, I'll get a notification that I'll be enrolled. And so somebody on the wait list will move up. So we don't hold your money forever. We have a certain period of time. So that will decrease the wait list. Once the deadline for those who were eligible fall term within the enrollment.
And how do you determine whether a person is eligible or is waitlisted? Is there a cutoff date by application? Is there
Application deadline makes you eligible. So if I applied right now and I was eligible, I'll be on the wait list.
all right?
Like apply early.
Okay, so the earlier a person applies, the greater the opportunity.
We have a reservation amount on hold for those students. But if they decide not to enroll or don't enroll for whatever reason, then they are removed from that eligible list, and then the wait list that people fill up to get funding. There is funding. The program at $2 million.
So is there still funding available? Or is
Yes.
So this is a legislative question. So if they put more money into the program, would we do away with waitlist?
So basically, when the program first started, the amount was $6,400 for each student. So that was enough money. But if a student enrolled, because you have up to 3 years to use that amount of money, you might enroll in a program that was only, say, $1,000. But you could go back, say you did the blood bank pathology technician. Then you say, oh, now I want to do medical assistant. Now I want to do nursing. So in that period of time, you could enroll in all of those different programs because you were funded. But then some students may just do one program like truck driving, which is over $5,000. And they'll use that whole amount at one time. So, but the reservation amount has been reduced to $3,500. So that means more students are now eligible for funding. because we're only reserving a certain amount of time. So once we got some data and amounts that we were getting bills from the colleges, we were able to see that they weren't using the higher amount. So the amount that we were reserved for each student has decreased, allowing more students to be funded.
And just, I want to point out something real quick. It's first come, first served. Based on if you are first to apply, then you are first to be guaranteed the money. And we started out at the 6,400 maximum amount that a student could receive because of that first come, first served. And as the year has gone through and we have seen that not as many students are actually attending as we thought, the Board of Regents has determined that we need to reduce that allocation per student. And so that's how all of that logistically has been working.
Good, thank you, I appreciate it.
And then if they were eligible and their program didn't start for another 3 or 4 months, that's why it would be kind of.
We give them enough time.
Yes.
To enroll, because some of the, particularly the non-credit courses, the schools have to find appropriate faculty, the teachers not like, right. You know what's gonna be offered at Northwestern or whatever at the beginning of the semester, but then with the non-credits, enough students show an interest in being aligned with, they have to give it energy to find somebody to teach that course and that sort of thing.
And I have an additional question. So how are the funds allocated versus the public institution versus the proprietary?
That's in the statute.
So it's only
It is
$500,000 for proprietary schools.
Sorry.
$500,000 for proprietary and then the 10 million for the public institutions. And all in first country, so all of them went, all the eligible students enrolled in BRCC, they would show more money than, say, BIPC and Freeport.
And am I correct in remembering that this is community colleges?
Community in the 2 years, LSU units and Southern Shreveport are also eligible. They also.
So it's not by program necessarily so much as it is by community college.
So it's both, the 2-year institutions plus is the top demand occupation programs. And so the Workforce Commission, along with the Board of Regents and J. Foster Council determines which programs they're going to fund. So it's at their version, they're going to fund at 2-year schools, because arguably you might have a 4-year school that through their Department of Continuing Ed or non-credit offers that. But this was dedicated, this funding source through statute to 2-year school.
And it's the 5 sectors: information systems, manufacturing, construction, logistics, transportation, healthcare.
So it kind of aligns with the jump start for the students that were in those pathways when they were in high school to continue on into college and not necessarily. They can go into certificate programs too.
Well, this is 21 and older.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's also now a pilot through the LCC schools for those students who want to do the same areas, but they don't need the 21 year, but in J. Foster, they 18 to 20-year-olds can also enroll in the same high demand through another program.
If a student graduated, went into the workforce for say 3 years, and then decided they wanted to do this, would they be eligible?
Yeah, 21 and older.
Unless they completed an associate's degree already.
Yes.
And so the school reach out to you guys or the student applies, I'm assuming they put the school that they're interested in going to. Yes, okay.
Am I also correct in assuming that these things that you're talking about, these programmatic policy things are done by Google as opposed to legislation? Are we want to make changes? Do we have to change legislation or? can we
No,
change it?
the logistics as far as changing the award application and that is being done by Board of Regents through policy statements. So that is not in the rulemaking and it's not in the statute. The maximum is in the statute, but the different allocations, because when we did the rulemaking, you'll remember initially, it was a long process of let's trying to get that rulemaking just right with a work group. And that work group continues to meet to this day, because, you know, as we're getting more data in, we might have some tweaks to that rulemaking, which of course will come to you if and when we decide to make those. But without any data, know, we like to act on data. So without a year's worth at least, we didn't want to change the rulemaking midstream.
I appreciate that. But I also appreciate, we also do want, in my opinion, want to make sure these programs are flexible enough to be used as they change. That's what I hear you saying. So, yes, just like. Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Thank you very much. All right, TOPS update.
Not much has changed since last month. TOPS, there's still a significant decrease from last year in TOPS billings. The biggest declines are at Grambling, McNeese, UNO, and Northwestern. All of the schools have shown over a 15% decline in TOPS billings. The only major university that's shown an increase was Southeastern. The reasons are that high school graduating classes are smaller. The percentage of high school graduates who qualify for TOPS are decreasing, and the acceptance rates for those who qualify for TOPS have declined. So, yeah, it's a three-pronged and showing significant decreases. I think that there will be one more year of decrease before it starts increasing. We have large exiting classes, and they're being replaced by smaller entering classes, and we have one that this May will be the 8th semester of that last large class. So I do think we're going to have one more year of this, and after that we'll start and increasing. And if y'all see that there's a decrease in the TOPS allocation this year, just note TOPS is fully funded. The decrease is in the budget allocation. It was too much to begin with, so we're giving it back. We're offering it back to the state. TOPS is fully funded, including summer school, even with that decrease in the TOPS allocation. So,
Questions, comments? Thank you. Very interesting. Next, we have the executive director. Okay.
We wanted to give some shout outs and give you an update here. You know that we've spoken to you over the past 5 years about the decline in the federal family education loan program. That loan program, we've talked to you about that. We've talked to you about the fact that we would stay in this program until it was no longer financially feasible for us to be in the program. Well, that time has come and it is gone. So that necessitated this timeline, as you can see, from January 10th, when the federal family education loan program was basically ended, which means you're basically working yourself out of the job of doing the program. So we wanted to bring you this timeline and let you know that the transition for LOSFA being out of the loan business with the program was completed officially as of January 3rd, 2023. ECMC, who we have been partnering with, has been designated by the USDOE as our successor guarantor, and we will maintain a relationship with them about necessary expenses that we still have to cover over the next 3 to 5 years.
yes, the majority of it is going to be in the next 2, but after that, yeah, there'll be a small amount.
So a huge shout out to the legal department, with Robert taking the lead there, the fiscal department with Brett and Liz taking the lead, Patrick with the auditing and the loan database data. That has to be, all of that ownership had to be transferred and formalized, and IT for collaborating with those divisions to make sure that we got the letters and borrowers were notified. So just a huge shout out that this was a cross-divisional collaboration with a very tight timeline, and also Brett's folks with fiscal and Robin's folks with contracts, with helping state purchasing to know that this federal deadline was one that they truly did intend for us to be able to meet, and a slow process on, you know, getting that finalized was not going to go over and be received well. So they did receive those messages, and so that transition has been completed. Next slide. This is basically the letter that confirms that transition has been successful, and it acknowledges the support that ECMC experienced from the federal, from the LOSFA team. So just thought you all would want to see that formal shout out given to the team by USDOE. Next slide. We've talked to you about the operating fund. You know that there were two funds with the loan program, the federal fund, property of the federal government. That's what you use to pay claims. That's not yours to use, right? Besides for very specific purposes. But that operating fund is that cushion that we talked to you about that helped us do outreach activities, helped us before the Board of Regents kicked in dollars to pay for the people that sit behind you that are not on grant dollars. That operating fund was paying that. So these statistics basically show you that over $46.8 million has been used in that federal revenue to pay for the operation of state programs. So all of these state programs like TOPS, like those, well, there are people that have to do that, right? That was being paid out of the federal funding. So it took us about 5 years of presenting data each year to the Board of Regents saying this funding stream is going away. We will need to transition those individuals off of a funding stream that's basically like a checkbook. If you're a checking account, if you're not putting any new money into the account, but you continue to draw money out of the account, well, eventually you're going to run out of money. So this shows you the projection where we are, and you can see the decline in that federal fund, the operating dollars that we have. You can see that the funding is stagnant and will be entirely depleted in the next 4 years. So the good news is that the state programs, the folks that operate state programs are taken care of with state general funding. We were able to secure that transition, but this is just your update to show you that that cushion is gone. That's correct. Perfect. Any addition to that? Okay, I think that's it.
Would you clarify this for me, what you just said? So the, since the 6.8 million totally gone, but is there a hole? There's not a hole that has to be made up in the agency. This has been, you go through this or what?
We've transitioned off of those dollars over the past 5 years. If they Board of Regents, please replace these with state general funds, because these are the people that run state programs.
And the Board of Regents said, yes.
And they did do that. And they, so now that funding has stayed level, and that goes back to the charts we showed you that says your funding for the people that operate state programs probably increased maybe 1.1, 0.2%
in the neighborhood.
But your programs increased over 175%, and the audiences you serve increased over 500%. But you got the same people to be able to do all those things, which is why you're seeing these folks come up with the updates on community partnerships, these organizations using technology as how do you serve all of these individuals, right, with a limited number of people and a limited budget. So basically that's what you're seeing in progress. But that was just documenting our staff's great efforts on this transition, because it was definitely a dot I's cross T's on timeline, and they did accomplish that, and just showing you the status of the fund.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, and then we go to new business. Okay, first new business. I counted the exceptions under this one, and there were 16, which is a lot. And so Rob and I sent an email to Rob, and I guess yesterday, and some of the things, there were some holes that needed to be plugged for me, and she was able to do that, and I don't have. I have one. Oh, there we go. Ah, yes, there we go. So if you switch back to the others to review a different screen set of documents will give you 16 exceptions. Robin, would you like to go over some of those now before
I can't do that.
she's going to fill in some information?
Yes. So on Madison, that's the first one. I did not include the, according to our records, information with the number of hours the student had enrolled in and earned for each semester. That was just an oversight, a failure in copy and paste, if you will. So for Madison, she had enrolled in 13 hours and earned 7 hours in fall 2021. Enrolled in 14 hours and it earned 5 in spring of 2022, and then enrolled in and earned 3 hours in the summer of 2022. Did you want me to fill in the whole?
Well, I don't know how we want to do it. Madison just jumped out at me, number one, and there wasn't the usual information that we usually get, just according to our records, student enrolled and so on. But you didn't have that before you made that consideration. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we go on? I was, maybe the people on campus, this is not the time, because I didn't ask anybody to do this. I would be interested in learning how campus-based financial aid people handle scholarships, in the sense that sometimes I'm feeling some of these students are asking for exceptions, and they're really not exceptions. They're really because they're they didn't pay attention to what they, the students, should have been doing. And I don't know whether campuses are more diligent in saying, I'm sorry, you should have reapplied. When I see what you all are doing for students and everything, and reaching out to them and giving them the opportunities to communicate 24/7 and checking things, I am still amazed at how students then say, oh, I didn't know. And I'm getting, it's bothering me, maybe because there were 16 that were saying, sometimes I'm being responsible and saying, okay, we're going to let you have this, or I don't know. This is just my feeling. That has the word passed around?
I think that was one of the questions, because I can't remember exactly which student it was, but it was that nobody told them, and we just had 2 people sit here and say that you guys sent out text messages, you sent out this, you sent out that, to tell them what are their responsibilities. And I kind of felt the same way. It was like, well, how do you keep saying nobody told you? And
I would suggest that the last 2 years, typically, that our financial aid folks with internal scholarships have been much more forgiving and understanding, because you cannot overstate the level of stress and disruption that face students.
I'm looking at it, and the year is 21-22. I mean, we're going to continue to see the impact of stress that impacted these students as they're able to articulate it. Then I also read this, and it doesn't say all of them are canceled. Some of these students are ahead of the game before it is, because they're reading the emails that they're sending out and they're saying, oh, I need to do this. So then that does have to come before us, because they did realize, hey, I'm in this, but the stress got to them and they have anxiety and they go get the help, but it's too late because they were only enrolled in 14 hours. They weren't enrolled in the 18 that we would have been enrolled in when we were in college. So I see that what you're saying. I mean, as a high school counselor, I'm seeing it in my high schoolers, and I know they're about to go to college, and I'm like, y'all had this earlier than, I mean, they come back to school and they're a little bit behind, some of them, because they were on virtual or they didn't have access. We live in a rural area, so they couldn't get on the internet all the time. So that impact is going to continue. I think it is going to grow. I mean, at least another year or two, because that would only be, 2 years that they've really been in college, since it started. I mean, it was kind of crazy that first year, but I mean, these students, when they're back on campus and they're had the stressors because they've only been home and go there, I do think it's.
So I think we've turned a lot to normal in terms of our environments now. But it's going to be a ripple effect, I think, at least for the 4 or 5 years.
I would say so too.
And one of my other roles, I chair the board of Marine Corps University. Everything from undergraduate work, and it's at the lowest level, all the way up to graduate fighting type stuff. Number of folks passing the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, has taken a drastic drop. That's just another indication of the impacts of the pandemic. And it's the effects it's having throughout anybody that's in education. So I wanted to improve all of this.
But at what point do we stop?
I think over the next 4 to 5 years, we start evolving.
Because I mean, I look at it, not saying that these are crutches, but 5 years now, I don't want us to continue to say, well, this is they're gonna use it as a crutch. And I don't also want to get into the habit of saying, well, we approved this before, or the board approved it before, but different circumstances, different people. So I'm agreeing to approve them. I'm just saying, at what point do we put a stop to it and say, okay, we can't continue to use this crutch?
So I think you bring up a great point, and it's this is somewhat related. We launched an initiative across all 9 of our institutions to run core competencies, regardless of the degree that you complete. What are the core competencies associated with that degree? Some of them are traditional, it's critical thinking, communication, cultural competence. One of those is resilience, right? The other one is self-reflective awareness. Taking those two in the perfect context and implementing that throughout the curriculum. And so we'll be able to have those conversations with students about what does resilience mean? How do you bounce back from a disruption in your environment, these kind of things. So I think that will help alleviate some of this. It's not, we're seeing it in the context of TOPS, but it's really just a sliver of the impact it's having.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think your point is exactly right. This can't be perpetuity. This has got to be something we're taking control of, and we're taking action on to try to remedy.
Dr. Anderson, I personally appreciate your comment where you're saying we're seeing this in this sliver in the context of TOPS, because this is something we continue to say. This is not a TOPS issue, right? TOPS is a symptom. What you see in decreases in TOPS is a symptom of a larger issue. But you go right over to the MJ Foster numbers, which is not merit-based aid, but need-based aid for returning adults. And we know that the statistics tell us that there's a large number of returning adults who need certificates and credentials. Then why do you have such a gap between the number who are actually eligible and funded with the number we pay bills for? The number we pay bills for is under 1,000. That's not a wait list issue, right? So when you see decreases there, it takes us back, Ms. Lawson, to what you very profoundly said in the December meeting. We are starting to see students, both adults, both new entering, traditional, non-traditional, that are looking at the total cost of attendance. Financial aid generally covers the cost to enroll, not the cost to attend. And they, for your words, are looking at the gap that is not covered and saying, thank you, but no thank you. I am not incurring that loan debt. And then we ask why. Well, unless you've been under a rock, you've seen what's happened with loan forgiveness. You probably know somebody that's saddled with loan debt in your family that is not able to do general life things that their parents or grandparents were able to do because of loan debt. And so now you see a generation and even parents saying, eggs are how much a dozen? No, thank you. I don't know where this gap is coming from, but we don't have it. And we just had that discussion in December. I had it with the commissioner during our latest update, and the Chronicle just published an article last week that said basically the same thing. Why are students turning down free money when you can't afford to take free money in the form of financial aid because you can't fill the gap? And it was because they're seeing all this and they have become more and more educated on the perils of taking on loan debt, right? Because the Calvary is not going to come and save you from that. So yes, we're trying really hard to keep it in all of these discussions in the bigger context, because if we weaponize one program against another, that is going to exacerbate the situation because then there'll be less financial aid.
Dr. Woods, if you remember students, we close the gap with a summer job.
That's right.
Or part-time, summer job is sufficient. It's no longer
Yeah,
sufficient. And it's not because the cost of higher education has gone up. Cost in real dollars has actually gone down. It's the share of that cost that is borne by the student, because the state, not ours, just our state, but the states in general have defaulted on that. And it's the combination of all of those elements that put the tremendous stress on students.
Well, this happened this week. I got a phone call from the younger sibling of one of my students at a former school. So I don't know this student, but she was trying to, I guess the payment deadline was a certain day. And so she called me because one of my students who's with her was like, just call our counselor, like she could probably help you. So she calls me and she's like, it's something to do with FAFSA. And I'm like, you should have done your FAFSA. Like it wasn't making sense. And I said, sweetie, if you can get here. Now it was a 45-minute drive. I said, if you can get here in 45 minutes, I will see you before I leave for today and I'll try to figure it out. This student drove from the college for 45 minutes, got to me, logs into her account. She's already completed the FAFSA. She's like full Pell or whatever, but when I said, they're not, you did your part. You wouldn't need your parents' FAFSA stuff for this. Like, it wasn't making sense for the information she was giving me. And I said, no, you had this. And I said, did you get a refund last year? Because it wasn't adding up all of these things. She was gonna have to pay several $1,000s. I said, no, the problem is you have a debt. You can't register when you have this debt. And it was a gap. I don't even think she was. So this semester, that student's not enrolled. She had been making progress because she couldn't afford to come up with that money on Tuesday or whatever the deadline was. I mean, it was within the last week. And so that kind of thing happened. And I'm like, this, again, it's not my student, so I'm not really understanding all this. I said, you have to go back to the college. She's like, maybe I can go to the financial aid department. So she drove back from where I was to the college, and she's not in school because she couldn't afford it.
What college?
Southeastern.
We had one with Southeastern. Ms. Carl handled it, and CASD and SC were waiting in the wing to talk about cost of choice, because it was a cost gap issue. It came to us from a legislator, but it wasn't that the students' financial aid hadn't told it yet, which is what the legislator told me, right? Is that it's not going to post, because this isn't an aid issue. That student was receiving almost full Pell. That student was receiving a GO grant. The gap was still left over from the fall and the spring. And so, to your point, these folks that are coming up to you and saying, we're trying this, because we see it and hear it every single day, all day. So that 20-some thousand phone calls, 26,794, yeah. And the telling point to me is when you say I conducted 416 virtual office hours with 483 attendees. See, I think that's a gold star, because that doesn't mean people are calling back because you didn't resolve their issue. That means only a few people call back. So what we have to keep doing is going, okay, so we did that, and you still don't know. Okay, so what else can we do? So that is the approach we're taking. It's like, okay, how else can we say it? Where else can we say it? And then can we use these metrics that go, if your phone calls dropped, that's a plus. If your hub accounts went up, that's the plus. So how do we know that, oh, when we said it this way, it hurts? As opposed to, we thought we were doing great sending these out, but you're not looking at that at all. We learned a long time ago, they do not read letters. We used to send letters out the wazoo, and it's like, and they're not either being read, or the student, they're going to the parent's house, and the parent doesn't know what to do with it because the student isn't home. So we had to pivot. So it is a constant job of pivoting and figuring out where to put the message, because this is not just unique to college students. We see it with high school. And it's like, how do you not know that? Yeah. Right, and you did all of that and you still don't know this. Okay, well, it is what it is, right? So what we have to do is what we've been saying, is how we adjust our services, get in there with those community-based organizations as well, so that when we leave, there's someone there with that smaller, more close-knit group that can follow up and reinforce and call us back and go, they still don't understand this. Oh, okay, let's see if we can say it a different way. So that really is the approach that we've chosen to take.
I have a question. When I was in college, we had these like catalogs that had the degree program listed out. I know they don't make those anymore, but with the progression through, we were told, hey, you want to at least have 15, so if you have to drop, you're at 12. So it would not have this issue. Is that still happening, or is it, I mean, because like I feel like we're asking, well, at what point? If we get back to that, hey, have 18 or 15, because you may need to drop a class and it would still progress. They may have to take a summer class, but I mean, I just see these numbers. This is what I see, is that there's no forward progress, but they were only enrolled in 14 hours. It was not enough to give them that mission. So like moving forward, even in this 4 or 5 years, I know the stress of having a lot of classes, but when I think about that, I'm like, not that many courses, and you're going to more of a 2-day instead of a 3 days in some places. So is that an option?
It's another contributor to the gap. We used to be able to take those extra classes for free because in 12 hours things were capped.
Right.
Caps. So you're paying for that 4th class, that 5th class, and that 6th class now.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And you're also working. Much, our little campus job would do it, right? And you know, if I had a little on-campus job, and that was my little play money. This isn't, as you pointed out, this is the same population. And the needs are greater, and the safety nets are far and fewer and far between. So if I don't have that safety net, and I might have responsibilities at home, and I'm helping pay for those eggs with my income, not just my play money, then my world is a lot different, and it becomes a challenge because the majority of us that are policymakers are not faced with that situation on a daily basis and did not grow up and go to school with that situation, yet the students that we're affecting do. So it does help us with this team. So most of these students, I'm not going to talk to a legislator who's going to call me about one of them. But every situation that they call me about to go, and you're scratching your head going, no, wait, say that again now? Okay, makes us rethink every day. Okay, let's try it this way, because wow, that's a new one. I wouldn't have thought you didn't know that, right? So it definitely is a different situation, as you said, Christy. Students this year are different from the students last year, and we're beginning to see that.
That's a good point. I didn't know that cap was. I don't even know what point it did.
It happened about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it was a very compelling argument made by players in the state that, about equity and fairness, and they lifted the cap, and the voices that were opposed to it, mine included, were just not sufficient. If I knew then what I know now, I probably could have put that out.
Well, I mean, I was a TOPS recipient. I was one of the first classes when I was going through, and I had that, and then I had a scholarship. I graduated from ULM, so I had a dorm scholarship, and so it covered that for my first year. Then after that, I had more to do, but the amount that I remember getting for that, the cost of living on campus and the food, because the food prices are up, and not only they're up for the universities as well. So like, it was not, here's the tuition, and it was not equal almost in cost, and that's where I feel like sometimes our students are having the problem is. They can't afford to live on campus, but they also can't afford to live off campus. That is where the main issue is. And it's like, well, you don't have money to go to that. Like, it was a scholarship because I'm what I made on the ACT or something. It was like a Bayou Award or something. It was 1 year, but it was enough for me to get started to where I could make the connections and have something. And I just feel like there's just.
I had to work to pay for my $1,400 in tuition. $1,400.
Right.
That's one class.
Be careful your age. Yes. Now.
That's one.
I really appreciate your insights. Been very helpful. Anybody else have any comments? What would you want to vote on all these exceptions? There are no comments. I'd like to entertain a motion to.
Who's already announced it?
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor of approving this first group of exceptions, say aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, motion passes. Thank you all very, very much. The next one, so you have an explanation, and I want to staff for working back through and getting so that we have something that was accurate. I wasn't at the meeting, but I think what it shows is value of having people on this committee, advisory, committee, that have different experiences. Because without this, without the various experiences, we wouldn't have eventually got to the correct information. And I appreciate the time that it took for people to say, okay, we're gonna go back. See them in the black.
Somebody in the back, there we go.
So, and the next one is, the home studies, this one. No one has any questions? Motion to approve this one for the home study.
Motion.
Okay, and second,
Second motion.
thank you. So it's been moved and seconded to approve this recommendation for the home study. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. John, is there anything else? Okay, that's going to be sworn in the next meeting this month. Yes, so, so it's not Mardi Gras, so that's. See here. Anybody else, any public comments, anything before we leave? If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
No public comment.
Did you make it right?
I'm sorry.
Make a motion to adjourn, your name will be in the minutes.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
This is your, thank you.
There is lunch, I'm gonna, yes, I'm. There is lunch or meeting for these, they are marked, so just, on the side